Hello, everyone. Welcome to Healthy Widow, Healthy Woman podcast. And today we have a special guest, Dr. Jacqueline Byrd, and I'm going to share a little bit about her. She is a twice widowed business consultant, innovator, and the author of two books, The Innovation Equation and The Voice of the Innovator. I'm going to talk more about this in just a little bit. Now, she has drawn on basically 25 years of helping organizations unlock creativity. She also applies the framework in her books to share with widows navigating grief and rebuilding with courage. Whether you're in early fog or further along in your journey in widowhood, this episode will leave you with a new lens of understanding the courage it takes to rebuild, and the quiet reminder that the strength to find your way home has been in you all along. So, welcome, Dr. Jacqueline Byrd, to the podcast.
Thank you, Carolyn. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Um, we got to know each other because we were introduced by someone who met you and said, I think you two ladies should actually meet. And so we did. And then you sent me your book, The Voice of the Innovator, how the voice of the innovator can be cultivated in individuals, teams, and organizations, which I thought was really interesting because that's my life. That's launching Model Widows
That's
Club,
right.
our organization, Model Widows Club, and the Movement for Widow Care. And I love that you wrote in here, you said, I think that you will see your voice reflected in these pages. And it really did. And this book is still available actually on Amazon. I checked before we got
Yeah.
on this call.
I have a few extra copies here.
Well, I'm going to
Uh,
start with some questions with you because you've spent 25 years helping organizations innovate, and you've also been widowed twice at 40 and again at 72. So, when did you first recognize that the innovation framework that you had built before anyone else was doing it, mind you,
yeah.
professionally, was actually showing up in your own grief journey?
I think well, a couple of things. The framework of creativity and risk taking were actually part of what my father had developed.
Okay.
And and so I had those in my mind, creativity and risk taking. And it's interesting, Carolyn, because I was talking to a colleague of mine after my husband died, and I said, I'm going to hunker down. I'm just not going to do what I used to do, which is, take risk and push the envelope, and I'm just going to hunker down. He said, right. He said, right, I believe that. Right. Uh-huh. He said, I see you in a canoe paddling in the lake, and it's a small lake. And then all of a sudden you'll say, well, there's a passage over there. I think I could paddle over there and go to that other lake that's over there. And then I might be able to stop at a few people's houses. He said, that's how I see you. So it was like forecasting, what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to hunker down, but he was telling me that I had more to give back and I needed to do that. And so what started to occur to me is I needed to be creative and I needed to take risk because that message resonated so hard with me. Um, I didn't have the rest of the picture, but those two things have always guided me. Is that, and my father was always be creative, take the risk, not be careful. And that helped me a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. I mean, well, I'm just going to jump to the next question, which was, you lost your first husband, and you know, your father actually passed away 3 months after that. So you're talking about your father now having this really instrumental impact on you, and saying you have more to give in the world, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so. right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So like you you had joined his business. It wasn't just a personal advice that he was giving you. You came and you joined his business. But you
He
were
wanted
raising
me. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but you were raising a daughter and you were also navigating a new relationship because you were between husbands in widowhood.
Right. 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 It was a lot. It was a lot. And so keeping those two things in my head, creative and risk taking. One of the things that I did, which is and we didn't talk about this before, but I borrowed myself. That was how I got through meetings. That's how I kept going, is I borrowed myself, and that's the creative piece. I borrowed who I had been in order to show up at meetings and not start crying
Mm-hmm.
and not being hit by a grief wave. Is if I could come into the meetings like I used to, take charge, be okay, and then I'd go home and I'd collapse. And I had a little one to take care of.
Yeah, yeah.
And so all of that was happening at the same time. Um, yeah, it was certainly a difficult challenge, but when I came up with the idea of borrowing myself and taking the risk to do that, I started to grow into who I needed to be in the future.
That's
I
right.
think that is what happened, but I,
Mhm.
I had to get through it, and that's the way I got through it.
Well, I think borrowing yourself is another way to say put on the mask
Yep. Yeah.
to do life because as someone who was widowed at 37 and had young children, I know exactly what that is. I would show up
Right.
and do interior design presentations, and I was the designer, and then I would come
Yep.
home, be the mother, pass out, start all over again. And we have that in common, and that is millions of the reality for many widows' lives,
Yep.
especially in early widowhood. Um, and I will tell you that the confidence hit that women go through is very well documented in the research in which we do here at Modern Widows Club. And it was probably one of the most surprising part of the research that we do because it reminded me of early widowhood and how I had many doubts about myself and whether I could come back and be like I was before and deliver like I did
Yes.
before.
Yes.
And in a lot of ways, I was faking this past person that I was because
Right.
my confidence level was just not there. And the
Exactly.
loss of my identity as this mother, as this business owner, as this co-parent
Right.
really I mean, I knew it was happening, but until I saw the research that most women lose their confidence. That
Yeah.
is when I discovered this. Like in your book, you talk a lot about trusting your inner voice because when the losses become compounded, ambiguity feels relentless. And that is something I wanted to talk to you about because it's something I naturally ended up learning that
Hmm.
I used to be a little girl that would adventure in the woods and go on all kinds of adventures and do crazy things that would end up in places I never could have imagined. That very fearless, like Taylor Swift's, like, remember when she wrote that album? I was like, fearless. You're like 20 years old. What do you know about being fearless? But
Yeah.
that is when we're most
That's
fearless,
when we're
right?
most
It's
fearless.
it's
Exactly.
later when we learn we have a lot to lose
Yeah.
that
That's right.
it becomes harder. So talk a
Well, and
little
I
bit about
think
that inner voice. Yeah.
absolutely. And I think those are the things that started to show up for me well, we'll get to it. You keep asking me questions. I don't want to jump ahead too far. So,
No.
but I think being children, you watch children and they are fearless and they are creative and they take risks that we don't take as adults. And that's all of us. All of us have that little innovator right inside of us to come up with things that we didn't. I still remember my daughter, watching my daughter at about 7 coming up with a game in the fall where everybody had a paper bag, ran out into the yard, and the leaves were falling from the trees. And it was all about how many leaves would you catch in a bag. Well, where'd you come up with that? It was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And nobody said, hey, that's not a real game. Nobody said that.
Yeah,
But
I
as
love
an
that
adult,
story.
we often say things like that.
Yeah, I love that story because I grew up in the country, and that would have been totally something that I would have done. You create games out of whatever is closest to
Exactly.
you.
It was
So,
beautiful. It was
mhm,
beautiful. Yeah.
it is beautiful. So, when we talk about your innovation equation, which was the first book that you wrote, and then you wrote The Voice of the Innovator because it built upon this idea that creativity multiplied by risk taking
Right.
rests on these four drivers: living with ambiguity, being inner directed, resilience, and self acceptance,
Right. Right.
right?
Yep.
Which I gotta say, people talk about a lot now. But back in 2000, we were not talking about those things. And you
Yeah.
were such a trailblazer in talking about these earlier. And I wish I had known about them because I was widowed in 2000. This would have
Yeah.
been
I should
something
have
I wanted to read because so which of those four felt like the hardest, like the most difficult to access in your early months of widowhood?
Probably, and this is interesting because the research that I've done is self-acceptance is the hardest thing for women.
Mm-hmm.
And they always score lower on it than men do. And I'm sure that as widows, we would score even lower because your true north has just vanished. You don't know which is true north anymore when you're facing this situation. And so I think that just being able to self accept that something didn't work out this time, that something didn't work out next time, but my gosh, it will work out. You've just got to trust the process, that things will happen. But I think that's the hardest one. Um, and I think the second hardest would be ambiguity. Um, we're faced with just floating and trying to figure out again which way is north because there's so much um, moving around us.
Yeah.
I didn't. One of the things I didn't share in a story that I sent you is that when Kevin, my husband that died 2 years ago, um, he died 4 days before Helene hit, which and Milton. So two hurricanes, and I live on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
So everything was destroyed on the beach. The sand everywhere. I couldn't even walk out of my condo. I could get out of my condo, but I couldn't walk down the street. I couldn't drive down the street. I could walk down the street. They cleared a small path. Talk about ambiguity at a time when he's gone 4 days. I have two kids that live here yelling at me that I should have left, and they were trying to get me to come over to their house rather than stay in the condo while the storms hit. And I had to trust my inner voice that I needed to stay here and get through it. Because I wasn't going to leave my husband. He'd only been gone 4 days, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really important to me. But the ambiguity compounded on the personal ambiguity with the physical ambiguity that I was living through at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I yeah, it's like everywhere you turned, both
Everywhere you turn.
internally, spiritually, and then physically in what's happening around you. Wow.
And we're still digging out here. And I have often said, why aren't they moving faster? What's the problem here? And then I realize, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get more structure even in my physical life so that
Hmm.
I can live it. And then I step back and I say, we're still in ambiguity. You personally, and around you in the environment you're living that. So, I'd start to come back to my drivers and I'd say, okay, what is it really saying to you interdirectly? What do you need to be doing? And that is that I need to be reaching out. I reached out to you. I reached out. I started reaching out, knowing, what's the thing that we always fear is that somebody's going to say no or turn us down. And it gets worse when you're a widow. So you have to push a little harder. You have to be resilient. There we go again. The driver showed up. Be resilient. Um, if they say no, who cares? Move on to the next thing. And it's got to be you taking charge of it. And it's very hard. I know it's very hard for me too.
It is. The Dr. Stephen Southwick, who wrote Resilience, the Science of Mastering Life's Greatest Challenges book,
Right.
who included us in the third edition, he called it that we were on survivor missions.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
it's like, I think that like this is part of the toolkit to survive these
Right.
drivers, the understanding the ambiguity that's going on around us, making sure that we're trusting our inner self. And there's a lot of questions about that too, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's right.
Because we don't always make the decisions that we would have if we were not in widowhood, right? We would have
Yeah,
people to talk to or ways of thinking that were different now. But that, I
right.
think you're right. The self acceptance was just, it's a game changer when you're like, this is, and I think that community really helps you because they often see the resilience building in you and trusting yourself and managing the ambiguity around you before you see it.
Yes,
How
yes.
much of it. So I think community is just so important because it's a witness
Yeah,
and an observer of you doing it in real time, but probably never patting yourself on the back
yeah,
or
yeah,
taking the time to go, wow, look at what you got through.
yeah.
You're
Well, and
still
I think you reinforce it yourself because for me, I was thinking about it. I don't have people asking me, "How are you doing? What's going on?" anymore. They don't do it. And I'm 20 months down the pike. That's all. And even my first husband, I have to be the one that says to myself, "How you doing?" a lot of the time, and
yeah,
it's a whole loop, self-accepting your own self as being the reinforcer of you, you know, and that comes back to the comment I made earlier. We talked about the we versus me. You're now a
yes.
me and
Yeah,
not a
that's
we.
exactly what I wanted to ask you about next. You describe widowhood as shifting from the we to the me. And you say it that it asks us to live in an innovative way. But for a widow who feels paralyzed and overwhelmed and simply exhausted, what does the very first few steps really look like that takes
Yeah,
that kind of courageous living? What does that really look like? You're talking about it right now,
yeah.
but share a little bit more about that framework.
I think that I'm going to go back to your framework of hope, heal, grow, and lead. And,
Mhm.
I do think that it's different at each of those.
Yeah.
At, as a continuum, you follow that continuum, which is a fabulous continuum, the creativity, the ambiguity that is different at hope, at heal, at grow, and lead, right? It's different.
Correct. Hmm.
The interdirectedness is different at each level. So you can't have so much judgment about that, that you can't move along on the continuum. Just stay where you are and accept that the ambiguity is what it is. And time is it's not the healer. People always say time heals everything. Baloney. Time is a important, but time is helping you just step by step by step. You don't have to rush. You don't have to do it anybody else's way. You just have to go through it and accept the fact that those four drivers will show up differently all along that continuum.
Yeah. It's so true. I mean, when we created the widow empowerment quiz so that widows could determine where they are on that
Yeah,
continuum, it
yeah,
really answered a big question for me, like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I felt so disoriented in, have I progressed? Am I building a life, that am I regressing? I was constantly questioning myself and battling with this. Stay the way, stay the path, trust yourself. And then there will be like, all right, I don't know if I should trust you or not. So there's this real mental battle going on
right, right.
that I really didn't kind of have before. Before, I think I maybe had a tad bit more ego, and that really carried me through a lot of situations.
Sure,
Widowhood just knocks all that out.
it
It's just
does.
like
It does.
I
And
don't have
that's
to
where
face any of that.
that self-acceptance piece comes in.
Hmm.
Is that all the way through you have to, if you fell down and you know you get yourself back up and you keep going. And I have a I in my business world, I would always say to women, all right, how much time do you spend beating yourself up about this issue, right? Well, look at your watches, right? Or look at your phones or whatever, and give yourself a certain amount of time to beat yourself up about that and then move on. And if you find yourself beating yourself up again, you say, I got to go back, and that's the amount of time I have. And it will really help you to move forward on these things if you give yourself on that self acceptance piece. Don't spend all your energy and time on beating yourself up.
Yeah, that is so true because I remember if I look at my 25-year story and I think about that continuum, the hope, heal, grow, lead continuum. In hope, I was extremely hard on myself. I wasn't showing a lot of self-compassion, but I believed in myself. And then I also believed that I could pick new things to get involved in or to broaden my perspective or horizons. That was the heal portion. The
Yeah.
grow portion really was when widows started coming to me and I
Yes.
was further along and wanted mentoring. And that was just a whole new world for me because
Yeah.
I thought, I I guess I know a few things. It's been 10 years. And so when Modern Widows Club started, I was definitely in the grow phase. I was not in lead, but I became lead when I built this nonprofit and I started listening to tens of thousands of widows. That was what made me a lead. That's what made me dream for the future. So I used to say, okay, you want to cry and you want to have a pity party, you do that. Here's your watch and you do that,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
All right, 15 minutes is over. Now you're going to go back to the work of life.
Yeah. Yeah. And we should be able to do that. Take those 10 minutes and take those 15 minutes or take those 20. Just don't take 10 days or a month of, feeling bad.
Well,
Um,
you learn to master that, right? You
yeah, you
start
do.
in hope and you get better at it and heal and grow. I still have that today, but
Yeah,
I balance it with dreaming, and I balance
yeah,
it with thinking about researching where in some countries are doing a great job, with widows and bereavement leave. And so it
yeah,
balances out my frustration and my dreaming and my hopes for the future. And so I think that whole balance kind of happens in different
right,
variations as you're.
right. It does. It does. One of the things I want to say to you, about what you were talking about is that it took you 10 years to go through all of that to get where you are. Even now, I mean, it's taken you a long time. So again, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long time. Peter's been gone 35 years. And you turn a song on that was our song, and I am a puddle on the floor, you know. And so I go all the way back, all the way back.
Yeah.
So I think, it's not going to disappear. I think the only other thing I wanted to say is about this is not about being an innovator. This is about tapping that part of you that's creative and able to be courageous. That's what this is about.
Well, all of the things that you listed in your book, it says, as an innovator, I go outside existing resources and deliberately try to see the world from a different perspective, right? Always believe that there is a better way. Stay curious and look for interconnections between things that don't always seem like they belong together, especially to others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Believe in the freedom of thought. Stay outspoken. One of my
Yeah.
favorites. Stay determined and stay confident in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those I love. There's a little graphic in the book that
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Those
always
were,
say, how did that woman know me before I met her?
oh, that's cute. Well, it's interesting because I pulled out all the innovators out of our assessment, which is over 60 years old, the assessment tool. And all the innovators came out, and I sent out a questionnaire to them. And that's who responded, and they answered those questions.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that's what we got. And
I
again,
you know
remember, there are only
you
5% of the world is innovators. Only 5%.
Really? Oh, that's so
Yes.
interesting. Well, I can see that. I mean, I kind of like today, if we like I see Richard Branson that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We can kind of throw out some names even right now who
Right. You
have
could.
had
Yeah.
a long history of being innovators and in multiple different types of industries, which I find so fascinating.
Coco Chanel is my favorite.
Coco Chanel, yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, the entire pathway. I think that probably I've been an innovator my whole life. I've always felt like I think differently about the world, and especially my unique upbringing, being born in LA and then brought up in Arkansas, in a very rural
Yeah.
part of the world, which my childhood really helped cultivate my imagination, my creativity.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I didn't really, except in sports, playing softball, I don't really remember thinking I was a risk taker. But when I think about going and picking daffodils and blackberries, and no one was with me, and I was a child out in the
Right,
woods,
right, 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 right.
that is kind of taking a risk, because what if a dog comes around? Who knows? What if you get
Who
lost?
knows? Yeah, yeah,
But we still did those things, and
yeah.
we didn't think anything about them. So I love, when I asked you to write about being on here, we talked a little bit about Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yeah.
And so I want to, the idea that the power to get home, whatever home means, was always there all along. And for widows who aren't really sure where home even mean what home means anymore, what would you say to help them trust that they already carry, what they need?
You know, I'm going to expand on the Dorothy story a little bit.
Good.
So if you think about Dorothy, hooks up with the Tin Man, and the Tin Man is looking for a heart, right? Aren't we all, when we're widowed, we have to refine our heart,
Yeah.
right? And the Scarecrow is looking for a brain, and our brains are foggy,
Yeah.
and they are really cloudy, and we're trying to find our brain. And then the lion is really the courageous one, and he he wants courage. So all of them are searching for that, and they're really all inside ourselves, and inside, like Dorothy. She carried them along because they all were looking for something, just like she was looking for something.
I think Dorothy was an innovator
I think so too. I think so
because
too.
there's one thing to do life on your own. There's another thing to say, come along with me and let's
Yes,
do life together. That's literally the yellow brick road in that story is
yes,
you
yes,
stumble upon someone who's like, "Oh, come with me. I'm going here."
yeah,
And then
yeah.
when you get there, it doesn't always turn out to be what you thought it was going to be as you're even putting together this community.
It's so
And
true.
yet each of you finds what you need by going there together.
Yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right.
So the whole finding your tribe in widowhood was always foreign to me very early on, but I truly see the the not just critical, but the truly empathetic impact that it has on widows' lives today in this community, Modern Widows Club, and the communities and the women that have been drawn to our organization over the last 15 years has been, I have seen these women go through Hope Will Grow Lead. I have seen them come in and be served and step up and become leaders and then become board members or ambassadors and advocates. And I'm just in awe of
Yeah,
what I have witnessed
yeah,
happen. Because there's this, your book says there's an innovator like energy in
yes,
this organization.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
There is, and I would say, especially amongst women, there is just something that happens amongst women that creates that dynamic, and it's pretty phenomenal. Pretty phenomenal.
It is. It is. I love this conversation. I think your book really hit home for me because it was not just about the organizations and team building. It was about the individual and then how the individual impacts the team and the organization. And for me, it really kind of was a full circle
Yeah,
moment reading the
yeah,
book and then meeting you and going, ah, yes, someone actually wrote it down. And the book is small and it's handy to put in your
yeah.
purse, and it's still available on Amazon. And I hope our listeners will go find it because it really is. I actually am having my daughter read it.
Oh, good. Well, it's a funny story because the innovation equation was published by a big publishing house, Josie Bass and Pfeiffer.
Mhm.
And, there was a formula I had to follow. Oh, God, I couldn't believe it. So I got the whole thing done, and they said, it's too short. You're going to have to make it longer. It won't sell if we don't have it longer. It's not worth our while anyhow. So I came back and I had to add more pages. And I said, I want more color in it. No, can't have color in it. It's got to be a standard. It's going to go along with the other books that are really kind of groundbreaking for new thinking. And I'm thinking, oh, so a few years later, I said, you know, I really didn't write the book I wanted to write. So that's where the voice of the innovator came from. And I found a publisher that was a small publisher, but was willing to publish and edit the book. And I have a lot of color in it, a lot of drawings from a friend of mine.
Mhm.
So it came out the way. And so there was my inner directed voice saying, I'm going to do it my way now.
I am so glad that you persevered and you used all of the points, the creativity, the risk taking, the finding, our way forward. You knew that that wasn't all that you had to give, and then you wrote this wonderful book. And I'm so grateful that you did, and I'm so grateful all roads led to us eventually meeting, even though we probably met because we both became widowed.
Yeah. On the same day,
Yeah. Yes. That's right.
February 14th.
February 14th. And there's an entire with when we post each of us, me too, me too. There's literally which has not been developed yet, of widows who have lost their spouses on February 14th,
Yeah.
which is no one would have ever been able to tell me that I wasn't the only one. And now I know probably 20 ladies.
Yeah.
So that's the
Yeah.
beauty of community. Even
It
in that
is.
state, I don't feel alone.
Well, it is. Having a community of people that get it, which I think you use a lot, which I like that, is really important. And I'm really glad I found you all because there are no widows that are friends of mine, from the past, none. And so, they don't get it. They'll say things like, "Oh, it's too bad you've been widowed twice and I've only been married once." Well, that's that's something to really think about, that how important it is to have the community. And you've
It
made it
really
you've
is.
you you've made a difference. I want you to know you made
Thank
a
you.
difference.
Thank you. And you have too. And because the more we meet and the more we keep finding each other, it really does matter, because actually women do end up 50% of women are single. They're either never
That's right.
married or divorced or widowed.
That's right.
Being married is is a temporary actual status.
That's
If you
right.
really look at female longevity, that's the reality. And so
Yeah.
love your marriage, cherish it when it is there, but also know that being a knowledgeable wife is more than likely a very prepared widow.
Yeah.
I always share with people, we
Great
don't.
point. Great point.
Yeah. And so it's I've had to learn a lot about just women's populations, and studying sociology and the study of groups of women, and also encouraging research on groups of widows.
Yeah.
And you're included in that because your wisdom is very much needed in this community. And I'm so grateful you came and was on our Healthy Widow, Healthy Woman podcast.
Good. Me too. Me too. Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
And where can, if anyone wanted to reach out to you, where would they do that?
Well, they can, we hope that my email is still working. Uh, or you can call me, 612
No, don't say your number. No,
Oh,
you're so.
oh yeah, I shouldn't say my
Now,
number.
I'm being protective of our ladies. I have to step in
Oh,
and
thank you.
be the
Yeah,
mentor and leader. Don't say that.
sorry. How about this? How about this? Voice of the innovator at gmail.com.
Absolutely, we can use that one, and I can put that in the show
All
notes.
right, can you cut my phone number out of there then?
Well, that's why I spoke over it, because I didn't want you
All
to say the last four digits. So people
right,
will
all
have
right.
to guess on that, and I doubt if they'll be able to do it. But thank you so
Good.
much for being
Thank you.
here and talking with us. And we'll put information in the show notes. And we hope you enjoyed this interview with Dr. Jacqueline Byrd and the author of The Voice of the Innovator and the Innovation Equation. They're still available for you to find today, and I highly recommend them because they're very encouraging in widowhood. So thank you so much, Dr. Jacqueline.
Thank you very much, Carolyn Moore. Bye bye.